Hi, I'm James Ledbetter. I'm the editor of Inc. magazine and Inc.com, and I'm thrilled today to be talking to Anthony Casalena, the founder of Squarespace. Anthony, thanks for having us here.
Thank you for coming down.
Let's start at the beginning. How was Squarespace born?
It started we're a little over 15 years old right now, and it started back in my dorm room at the University of Maryland. I wanted to make a website for myself, and I was really unhappy with a lot of the tools out there on the market. To get a website together that had a couple pages and a blog or a photo gallery that was hosted, you needed to combine all these different pieces of software.
Really clunky.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 2003.
Yeah, like you buy the domain in one place,
exactly.
and then you have to download this software, and it was.
You got to mush them all together. The blogging software is different than the page building software, different than the statistics software. So you had to put all these things together, and I thought that was really clunky. But it was also that, I'm somebody who really cares about design, and I care about the way things look, and I care about the way things are presented and how they work. And even if I could smash all the software together, which I could do because I was an engineer, it still wouldn't be cohesive. And so really those were the two reasons for starting Squarespace.
Yeah, how did you raise money?
So the first money to start it came from my parents. They gave me 30 grand, and as they remember the story, it's something that sounds like we've always supported you, we've always believed, et cetera, until I asked for 30 grand.
Yeah.
And then that took a couple hours.
Did they see it, or were they just kind of humoring you, or?
They knew I put a lot, I've been programming since I was a kid, making things, putting it out there. This is not a completely crazy thing for me to do. And I really put the entire thing together except for the part that cost money, right? I mean, I needed the money for servers, right?
Servers,
back at the time, a redundant set of servers, initial hosting costs, and actually a logo. I couldn't draw the logo, but I could do, the software. I could make the website. I pretended to do the marketing, So I did all that, and I was just like, I need this last thing to go.
Presumably, you're out of the dorm at this point.
I am out of the dorm at this point.
Where is the office?
So, I graduated from University of Maryland in 2005. I moved to New York in 2006. And so before I added some people, I was literally in my ridiculous apartment that I moved into here post-college with complete strangers. And there was no office. I would just run it from my random 5-bedroom apartment in Chelsea.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then eventually, after doing that for a while, it gets tiring. I mean, it makes you kind of crazy. I mean, you can wake up, go to work is 10 feet away from you, go to sleep, that's rough. So I eventually got this is before WeWork and stuff. Yeah. I remember renting a desk from an architect who I met on Craigslist and moving into an office downtown just to mix things up. And then, when we started actually adding people here in New York, got a small office that fit maybe 7 or 10 people on Center Street here in downtown Manhattan.
Yeah. How long were you a one-man show?
About 3 years. I had some contractors at the time, but it was just me doing the majority of the work for a while.
What was the moment where you decided, man, I've really got to hire somebody now?
I was very comfortable doing a lot of the aspects of the business kind of myself. It just started to get overwhelming. I mean, at some point, you start to set a goal for yourself. You spend 3 months working on something, and you realize, I just spent the month doing accounting and then customer support, and then X, Y, and Z. And it's I'm not moving this thing forward. Right. And so it was very clear I needed to grow the team out a little bit.
It sounds a little bit like it starts off like a kind of passion project / hobby / maybe there's a business here.
Yeah.
But at some point, it becomes a genuine big thing, and I'm curious what that felt like when that period was for you.
By about 2010, I realized that the software that I had made that was primarily a blog-centric piece of software created in an era that was 5 years on the internet is forever. Was probably not going to power the future of websites. Browsers have gotten more sophisticated. People, you had this opportunity to use JavaScript and hardware-accelerated CSS on websites. You could put big full-screen imagery on sites. And a lot of the people here were really excited about making sites like that. And so what we did is we started rewriting the entire platform around 2010. In our case, rewriting was a really positive move for us, a really big deal. We took the lessons of the past, 6 or 7 years and built a system that really could create any kind of website and really push the web forward. That was Squarespace 6. We launched that in 2012. And so with that platform, we could go beyond just, blog-centric websites and into portfolios, and we had to focus around small business, and we had, we really were like, hey, like what are the categories we care about and how can we do this? And do we see demand for all these kinds of sites? So we evolved from just being a blogging platform to being a site building platform.
I need JohnMalkovich.com. Who has it?
Tell me about the decision to advertise in the Super Bowl. Who made that decision? Presumably it was you. And what was the discussion like leading up to it?
So I think the idea of it had always kind of floated around in kind of culture here, right? Like people joke, it would be a joke. It's like, well, we should just do the Super Bowl ad or whatever. And I mean, so we've done advertising from the moment I launched it, right? I spent, $200 on AdWords and made $100 and then spent $300 on AdWords and made a couple more $100. Right. And like, so that was very natural. And then, when AdWords sort of started to top out, it was like, okay, well, where do we go next? What ended up happening is we just kept growing channels, right? And so you would go from AdWords to podcast to radio to internet radio to internet video to out of home to subways and you kind of to television. You just kind of kept going, and at some point, while it was a really big leap for us to do such a concentrated buy. It was like, well, how do we take a really big step forward?
But I'm him. There's a film about me being me.
Isn't it a movie about other people being inside you?
Sure, why not?
What's really cool is it's 30 seconds that you're spending an immense amount of money for. And it really makes you think about what is your message and how do you get that across in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we've always nailed it with every single spot, and we've had different strategies year after year, but it became this kind of like rallying moment where it was like, okay, can we really articulate what we're about in a way that resonates with people really, really, really quickly? Are we confident enough with that message?
Sincerely, no. Also, John Malkovich.
You went from this long period of being kind of a one-man band to being the maestro of a very large orchestra. and how has that changed? How has it changed your day-to-day, and how has it changed you as a leader?
So it's changed me as a person, I think, immensely, and it's changed my day-to-day substantially. I mean, 15 years ago, I would have been doing programming most of the day and then doing copywriting and running the AdWords and installing servers and doing the uptime monitoring and network stuff. I mean, like I did all that stuff, answering the customer support, which I did for years. And now, my job is much more about communication, hiring, having strategic conversations with people, accountability, just those sorts of things, which are very different management, which is different. It's a completely different skill set than everything I was doing before. It's literally, going from an individual contributor, right, doing all these different things to somebody whose main job is, frankly, dealing with people.
Yeah. And how has that been? I mean, have you found what's the biggest challenge that you found in that scaling up of duties?
People. I mean, like, I joke around about it, but like, I think just having, I'm not saying I've fully solved any of this, but I think the moments of self-awareness when things start to go wrong and you've realized you've made a huge structural mistake or you've hired the wrong person or you neglected to do something. I think that stuff for me has been really, it's helped me grow a lot, right? Because I mean, things go wrong and really don't have anyone to blame but myself. And so when things go wrong, I try and ask myself why, and what could I do in the future to not get myself into that kind of position.